Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Mental Health Empowerment Summit. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm so excited to tell you all about her, Dipal Shah. Dipal is a recognized expert in the field of energy medicine. She is the creator of the Quantum Body Awakening Technique, a powerful course that teaches women how to become the master of their own health and well-being. She has helped thousands in over 92 countries break free from chronic health problems in conjunction with or where Western medicine has failed by identifying the root cause of their symptoms and increasing the life force energy flow. Dipal has helped her clients create powerful and profound shifts inside and out, allowing them to find more joy and inspiration in all aspects of their life. This is my favorite part of her bio. Dipal has worked with celebrities, healthcare practitioners, thought leaders, and many more. Her mission is to empower women to love their bodies. Like that would be like the most perfect place for all of us to get. And I feel like we're getting there, not quickly enough, but we're starting to make those moves. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Jana. It's so wonderful to be here. And hello to all of you out there who's listening to us and watching us. Thank you for being here.
I know that I always say this when I get people involved in this. First of all, if you're struggling right now with a mental health crisis, we add a number to the bottom that you can call and get help immediately. It's an 800 number. You don't have to give your name, but what I want you to do is not sit there alone in it. I want you to reach out to somebody. So that number is at the bottom. But when I reached out to all of these amazing people who've said yes, and I told them I want to do a mental health empowerment summit, and I really want to open up the conversation and remove some myths and give people some insight of what mental health really is. DePaul was one of the people who was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm totally in. What do I do? How do I help? And so thank you. And I want to just jump into all the amazing questions that we have for you. And one of them is like about you personally and your journey from pharmaceuticals to teaching women how to heal naturally.
Yeah, well, my journey started because I was uncomfortable and in pain for years. And that pain took a toll on my mental health. And at that time, mental health wasn't really on the rise. I mean, it was there, people knew about it, but it wasn't as a hashtag back then, right? It was about 10, 15 years ago. And now we see that mental health is one of the top most things talked about all over the place, all over the media. And we saw it at the Oscars. We see even yesterday, I opened up the news and we find out about Naomi Judd dealt with mental health issues before she passed. So it's really coming to the forefront. And no matter what kind of pain, whether you're going through an illness, a loss, a grief, abuse, financial troubles, relationship, career-wise, anything that where you feel like you're out of control can take a toll on your mental health. And for me, it was my digestive issues. I mean, I had ulcers, gastritis, gas, bloating, constipation for years, and it progressively got worse. And it was to a point where I was exhausted because you keep thinking, how am I going to fix this? How can I fix this problem? And when you're in the fix mode, it takes a toll here because you're trying to do all the research, it basically depletes your energy, everything that you're trying to do. And I visited so many doctors. I would be at the doctor's office once a month saying, okay, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Believe it or not, studies have shown that 17.3 million Americans experience depression or depressive symptoms. And I found that when we have these symptoms show up, we fall into this downward spiral. And that's what was happening to me. So yeah, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I had access to the doctors, I had access to the pills, but it wasn't working. And that's when I started to dive deeper into my pain. And I started looking at natural modalities. And I tapped into yoga, I tapped into meditation, but I started with eating because food is medicine. And so I started there because I didn't know all else was available to me. But the thing that helped me the most, Jenna, was energy healing, because that really got to the root of what was happening in my body. Like, why was it showing up? right? Why does depression show up? Why does anxiety show up? There has to be a trigger point. There's a trigger point in everybody, and you might not think about it. But when you really dive deep and have someone that can help you do that, you're going to find that trigger point, and it's called the root, right? It's a subconscious root. And so when we dive deep into that, you'll see how many things show up and come to the surface for you. And that's what happened to me. Today, I don't have any digestive issues. I'm well, I'm healthy. I don't have the anxiety, the fear, the depression, the panic, the PTSD that came along with the dis-ease, because I find that every ailment comes with some form of mental health attack, I guess I could call it. And people don't realize it until they start spiraling down this dark road. And it's a matter of getting yourself out of it. It's just where are you going to find the support? So I'm so happy that I found my support. And I said, you know what? Because I have healed naturally and doctors weren't able to help me, unfortunately, I wanted to offer that to my clients. And so now, being in this global space of helping women all over the world find healing for their bodies and learn to heal and listen to their body is so important, so that they could be better mothers. They could be better entrepreneurs, leaders, and just empowering them. But sometimes we have to get well before we can move forward. And so that's my story.
I love your story. I find it really inspiring. You talked a little bit about anxiety and panic attacks. Can you explain? Because a lot of people don't even know it. They're having a panic attack. They don't know what's happening. Can you explain a little bit on how that felt for you, and what was it? What was going on in your mind, and what got you like out of it? How do you get out of a panic attack when you feel that happening?
Yeah, so let me just say that 1 in 4 adults suffers from a diagnosable mental disorder, and it can be debilitating, where you feel like you're never going to get out of it, and your family members can try to help you. But what I have realized from working with so many clients is that you have to do the work, and it's hard. It's really hard. But you have to do the work. It's an inside job. And I'm not going to say I know how to describe it for everybody, but for myself, personally, about 11 years ago, a past childhood trauma got stirred up and it came to the surface. I never expected that it would come back. I thought once it was gone, it's gone. But it was heavier than ever this time. And I had to make a choice. And so I had talked to my parents. I was at the same time being harassed by my mom about why I wasn't taking a specific action, because she didn't understand. She didn't remember the trauma. And I spoke to my dad about this trauma later on, and my mom still insisted that I take this specific action. Well, I was very reluctant, and as an adult, I realized that I can make my own choices, and I was going to stick with it. I don't have to please everyone or anyone, and I realize it's my mom, but I didn't have to please her anymore. So what I decided to do was to take my own action. But in setting my own boundaries, I was experiencing anxiety. That anxiety became panic. The anxiety and panic were stimulated by underlying fear, and I could feel a sense of uneasiness in my body. I mean, I would be sweating in the middle of the day. I would feel claustrophobic, as if the walls were closing in on me. I felt dizzy. My heart would start palpitating when these anxiety and panic attacks, and anxiety is a little less than a panic attack. Okay. But they're very, very similar. A panic attack is more to the extreme. Well, you might even faint, you might vomit or feel nauseated. But my heart would be racing. I wanted to throw up. I would be driving down the road on the highway and I'd have a panic attack and I wouldn't know when it would come and go. It was terrifying. And so one day, luckily, I had two support systems, my brother and my husband, as I was going through this time in my life. And one day in the middle of an attack, my husband said to me, he said, and I'll never forget these words. He said, "You need to take control of your mind." And at that time, I didn't realize, well, what the heck does the mind have to do with it? Look at how I'm feeling right now. Look at my body, you know? And just those words, once I really reflected on them, I was like, wow, from that day forward, I took complete control of my mind. And I said, that's it. You have no control over me. I'm in the driver's seat now. Because I had to connect with my soul and my spirit. And that was really important at that time. And remind my mind that, hey, I am in control and I can make choices. And so when you're having these panic attacks and anxiety and depression, there were times where I didn't even get out of bed. And all my husband could say is, "I love you, honey." And I just knew that I had to be, of course, better for my family, but I needed to get better for myself. So we have to make a choice, right? We have to make a choice of, one, knowing that we have choices, and two, changing our mind, shifting that mindset, knowing that we have that power to do so.
I definitely want to keep touching on some of the trauma because you specialize really in women with trauma and helping them work through it. And people like don't understand how trauma works. So if you're traumatized as a young child, something happens, your brain does some incredible things to keep you safe. You forget, it gets pushed down, it felt differently. And then something later on in life will trigger that. And all those emotions that you forgot about, sometimes you forgot it even happened. They're like, where did that come from? And it comes up, right? And our brain's like, well, you're an adult now. We can figure this out, right? We're going to put it out there till you work through that. And so when you're working with women who are going through trauma from childhood that are being brought up by things that are happening in their lives as they're on their beautiful journey, what are some of the things that women need to know about trauma and mental health to help get through that? Or like, I remember when something came up for me, I'm like, where'd that come from? Why is this happening now? Like, I don't understand. And it wouldn't go away. It would not go away. It got worse and worse and worse till I faced it and got help to go through it.
Yeah. So I was looking at some of the studies, and 50% of women go through some form of trauma. Personally, I think that number is way too low, very low, because those who come to me, and I've worked with thousands of women over the world in the last 10 years, and 99% of my women have gone through some form of trauma. Some overcome it better than others, and some never want to take a look at it. Some have repressed it. And so what happens is that we collect these traumas, we organize them within our body in specific areas, and they turn into these imprints. Okay, they turn into imprints, which later turn into wounds or scars, I could say. And they trigger later on in life when you have a relationship or when you have a career. And, you know, it shows up in relationships, right? Because from birth, everything starts from a relationship. Right. And, you know, your first kiss, your first date, your first marriage for some, just everything starts with a relationship, and we get hurt through relationships. And so if you're finding yourself angry, frustrated, impatient, controlling, moody, some of these things need to be addressed. And that's the low level symptoms that show up as trauma. Okay. And for me, it was anger. And for most people, it's anger. And it's suppressed because we as humans suppress about 90% of our emotions. Because maybe it's children, we're told, oh, you can't show anger, you can't show fear, you have to be strong. And so Here's the fact that there are three brains, okay, that we all have. And the second one is the most important that we need to take care of. And that's that fight, flight, and freeze brain. All three brains need to process and get the support that you need when a trauma occurs immediately. But that doesn't always happen, right? If this trauma is not processed immediately, the brain will hold on to it and it won't grow and mature the way it's supposed to. And so then mental health concerns start to appear either later in life or immediately. When triggers happen, that second brain gets activated and then it gets stuck in survival mode. And then it starts to trigger a whole series of events where you might not sleep well, you might not eat well. You see that anxiety come up. You experience heart palpitations. And I've seen, Jana, where people experience tremors or even epilepsy because of the trauma. So if you don't get the support that you need, later on in life, this will show up. And a lot of people are on anti-anxiety medication. They are on antidepressants. And sometimes that's not even helping. So I want you to find what's going to help me. Start doing yoga, start doing meditation, start eating properly, start taking the supplements that are going to feed your brain and your body to help you overcome, and seek out an energy healer. If you've never done any energy healing work, I would love for you to contact me and let's talk about it to see if it's the right way for you to go.
I love everything you just said. I want to go back a little. I just did the most incredible podcast interview with Dipal, and we talked a lot about food, feeding our bodies, and it being medicine. Here's the thing with mental health issues. If you're having a panic attack, you're not going to be able to eat an apple and have yourself feel better, right? It literally is pushing out all the bad toxins, the bad anti-inflammatories, the things that our bodies just don't know what to do with. And it's working overtime to try to figure it out, and giving yourself some time to start putting in the good things that are feeding us, that are feeding our brains, our muscle, our blood, our heart, all the things that we need to support our bodies to do what they need to do. Like, think about what our bodies have to do every day. And so one of the things I want to finish up as we're talking is, how are some of the things that you do personally to support your mental health? And I know a huge part of that is diet, like what we're putting in our bodies.
Yeah. So here's a few guidelines, and I call it the self-maintenance because we have to, this day and age, with the stress that we live in, the pandemic that we're still moving through, the wars, everything just happening around us, we have to find preventative self-maintenance methods. And it's like brushing your teeth. You do it every day. Self-maintenance is one thing that people don't realize has to happen every day. So I challenge you to do this. But number one is acknowledging that you are neglecting yourself. And make a firm decision every single day. When you wake up, I prioritize me. Like, say it out loud. I am going to take the time to prioritize me today. Because at first it might feel weird, even when you say that, but you'll see how your brain starts to create the actions accordingly, because now you're giving it direction. We have to give our brain direction. And that's what I've learned over the years. It's like my child. I have to give it direction. And it's easy to put others first, so we tend to then deplete ourselves. But I've worked with so many clients that are caretakers. They are constantly taking care of their loved ones, or they're lonely and they don't have anyone. And I've also worked with those that have young children. And if you do not do the proper self-care that's necessary, yeah, you're going to feel fatigue. You're going to feel unfocused, brain fog, lack of self-confidence. And all of this is going to erupt one day. It builds up. It creates burnout at first, but then it goes into anxiety and panic. And we don't want that. We want to make sure to take care of ourselves. Number 2 is setting healthy boundaries. This is so, so important. You have to figure out, what are your boundaries? How are you going to grow and thrive mentally? Okay, how are you going to find that motivation and that support that you need? What is it? How much are you going to take from the world and how much are you going to give? Okay, so healthy boundaries are very important. And number 3 is to take action. Start with setting up some disciplinary actions and do it slowly, one thing at a time. You don't have to start your yoga, your meditation, eating right, like everything all at once. Okay, I want you to take small steps, whatever's right for you. Like I started with healthy eating habits, and then it progressed to other things. And when we do that in small steps, we're going to feel more accomplished. And then you're going to want to do more because you see a difference in how you feel. And so, yes, eating right is so important because mindfully eating is important. And moving is important. Those are the 2 things that I require when you take action, is moving your body and eating healthy meals, because that gets the endorphins going. It gets the oxytocin and dopamine moving through your body. And that's why it's so important to do that.
I love that message. By the way, I just had to write it down. I prioritize me today. And if you start every day like that, you're not being selfish. The least selfish thing you could do is to put yourself first, because if you break, what happens? Like, think about it. If you're a mom, you break, what happens? If you are a daughter and you break, what happens, right? There's so many scenarios, but take care of yourself. What is the oxygen mask thing on the plane, right? There's a reason that we put ours on before we help the person next to us. If we're dead, we can't help somebody. If we passed out, we can't help somebody. So I love everything you said, Dipal. I think you're absolutely amazing. I just want to point out again that if you are struggling with a mental health crisis, you feel like you're in crisis, I want you to please reach out to the number below. Call, it's just an 800 number. You don't have to give your name, but if you've connected with one of our speakers, reach out to them. Like, I feel really connected to Dipal. I want to learn about energy. Maybe that will help me. Here's the last thing I want to leave all of you with, and I think Dipal would agree with this, that the road to mental health healing can often feel like a road of failure, but it isn't. It's a road of feedback. We're simply learning what works for us and what doesn't. So if you try something and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean you failed at it, and you're never going to find, that happy place for you in the mental health journey. It just means you got to try something else, and you're not alone. That's why we've brought so many experts to you, so you have a plethora of things to pick from. Dipal, thank you so much. I think you're fabulous. I'm a super fan, but I want to talk a few minutes before we leave about your mindset hacks for immediate confidence.
Yes, so I love this 21 mindset hacks for immediate confidence. Mindset is everything. And I've talked a lot about the mind. I want your mind to be in the driver's seat. And a lot of times when we are in that state of anxiety, panic, depression, we tend to forget that we're in that driver's seat. And so I have provided these different mindset hacks to give you the confidence to move forward. And you can use each one of them each day, or just take a few each day, however you want to use it. But you've got 21 mindset hacks. So maybe you could do one each day and call it 21 days of mindset hacks. So, yeah, grab that.
Yeah, she's provided that for free for all of you. So go grab it. There's so much to grab in here. So thank you again, Dipal, for doing this. I'm just so grateful to you. And this has been such an incredible summit. And I just feel like we're going to start changing and put that ripple effect out into the world and healing mentally. So thank you.
What great timing. And thank you so much for having me here, Jana. And thank you, all of you, our viewers, our listeners. Thank you for having me.